Welcome to Leading for Life Stories Season 4. I'm Bob Judson. I'm the host for this podcast, and thank you very, very much indeed for joining me. Whether you're a new joiner or a seasoned listener, then I really hope you enjoy the mix of content that we provide. The personal stories, the thematic episodes, and of course, the fantastic guest interviews. If you've been with me since the beginning, then I'm enormously grateful for your loyalty and thank you so much. If you're relatively new to the show, then I really hope you like it, and I hope you find all of it interesting and some of it hopefully useful to you. Please subscribe on whichever channel it is you're using, whether it's YouTube, whether it's a podcast platform. That really helps us boost the show and get it over the hills on the algorithms. So if you can do that for me, I would be enormously grateful. But without further ado, let's go. Welcome back, everybody. This week, I'm thinking I'm going to do another thematic episode, and I'm specifically going to talk about trust and integrity. Why? Because I don't know about you, but if you're watching this kind of just about the time it's recorded and released, then this is a really big issue in society today, not least at the political level, where I think it's highly questionable that our political leadership in the UK, but more broadly in the UK, are really showing the kind of trust and integrity that you really want from leaders. Now, I don't want to make this a political debate. I never really do political stuff on these podcasts beyond talking to my guests about geopolitics and so on. I don't really want to get into personalities or individual events because I'm not really sure that's helpful. But I think for me, at least, trust is a really key leadership trait. Integrity is a really key leadership trait. If you don't have trust from your team, if you don't trust your team, so it's a two-way process, it's very difficult to lead well, in my view. If you don't have integrity, personal integrity, and people don't see you as being a person of integrity, that's really hopeless as a leadership thing. You've got to have integrity, and you've got to be able to trust your team. You've got to be able to build trust from your team as well, so they really feel that you've got their back, and to some extent they've got yours as well. That's what you want to feel, but it's not there. Too often in leaders, it's not there, and it's not something that is innate. It's not something that is, you've either got it or you haven't. There's all sorts of things you can do to think about how people are going to develop their trust in you, how you're going to enhance your trust of them, how you're going to enhance their trust of you, how you're going to demonstrate your own integrity. So I thought this was an episode worth doing because I just think it's one of those things that we seem to be losing our way a little bit societally. The politicians obviously catch the most flack on this because they get huge amounts of broadcast airtime, print media time, etc. And it really shows up. It really is starkly revealed in people that are highlighted in the public domain and when they're challenged, and it sort of showcases itself. But I don't think it's unique to politicians. I think this is an issue in leadership in the round that is vitally important. There are too many leaders who neither have the right level of integrity. I'm not saying they have none, but they don't really demonstrate they have real integrity. And there's certainly too many leaders who do not have the right kind of trust ratio with their teams. They're not trusted by their teams, and they don't actually trust their teams. So they're micromanagers. They look after doing stuff themselves because they don't believe other people can do it for them. That's not a good thing. Or they actually don't inspire trust from the team. The team don't feel that actually you're going to look after them, you're going to protect them. All these things, which I think are really critical, aspects of being a good and strong leader in any kind of organization. It's a team thing, but it's also an individual thing. It's about fostering the right kind of team spirit in the organizations that you're looking after, so that they actually build that trust within the team as a whole, so they trust each other, they believe they can work together, they can actually sort things out together. But also it's about your individual performance and your individual space, I suppose, that you occupy in this area. There's a couple of good models around this that are really helpful, I think, to talk about it. Patrick Lencioni, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I've talked about it before. The triangle that is very clear with that, where trust is at the bottom. It's the foundation of the pyramid that is building up to great results. because you want the trust piece at the bottom to be rock solid. Then you get the conflict layer, then you get the commitment layer, then you get the accountability layer, and then you get results. And you need to have that fundamental trust at the beginning of that process if you're actually going to have any chance of being successful ultimately at the top, because the trust allows you to feel and allows the team to feel that they can have the conflict, they can have the argument, they can thrash out the things to decide what's the best way forward. So everyone's had their voice heard, and then actually you've got a chance of going upwards from there. The next layer up, the commitment layer, if you haven't had that debate, it's really tough to get people to actually commit to something if they didn't actually buy into it in the first place, if they feel they haven't been listened to, they haven't had their chance. And obviously onwards up to accountability. If you haven't committed to it, why would you be accountable for it? It's not my problem. I didn't agree to it. I didn't want to do it. So, that's another thing that is really, really important here. But beyond that, the other thing that I think is a really good vehicle to consider, particularly in this debate that I'm talking about from an individual point of view, is a thing called the trust equation. Trusted Advisors Associates produced it. You can find it all over the internet. It's a really, really useful model because it's a simple equation. It's trust equals credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation or self-interest, depending on which way you want to look at it. You can have all the credibility in the world. You can be as reliable as you like. You can be absolutely a super personality who gets on really, really well and develops all that kind of intimacy. But if you have too much self-orientation or self-interest, then the divider that's coming underneath that numerator at the top is a massive problem for you, because it's suddenly going to mean that actually, no matter how much you've built in terms of credibility, reliability, and intimacy, it's being completely consumed by the self-orientation piece that's underneath it. And that, from a trust point of view, is an absolute killer. And that's where I think you see it most starkly amongst politicians in the debate that I started off here, because they are very often very self-orientated. They're very self-interested. That's evident. It's what people perceive about them. They're not altruistic. They're looking after themselves. These are all the criticisms that everyone levels. Now, I think it's grossly unfair to tar every politician with that particular brush. That's not what I'm trying to do here, because there are plenty of really good ones. There are plenty of very altruistic ones who genuinely are looking after people's best interests. But some of the time, and particularly playing out in the public domain in recent times, you start to see a much more self-interested style of leadership, where people are motivated by their own focus areas, their own things that they feel are important to them, and they frankly just don't demonstrate that they care at all about the wider public and what's going on. And from a leadership point of view, what do you think of that? I think that's terrible. I think it's appalling leadership. I really don't think it works. So what I want to do is try and just give you a flavor of why I think this is important. And that's what I'm aiming to do with today's episode. In some ways, this is related to what I talked about a little while ago on a thematic episode where I talked about ownership and accountability, because I do think they're linked. But the issue for me, particularly of integrity, is absolutely paramount. I think if you don't have and don't demonstrate integrity to your team, it's always going to be a challenge for you to actually be an effective leader, because your team fundamentally aren't going to trust you. They aren't going to believe what you say. They think you're at least two-faced, if not more than two-faced, in terms of the way you behave potentially. And you do see this with too many people in too many worlds. Lots of people trust by default. They'll walk into an organization, to a meeting room, to a networking event. They'll meet people, and very quickly they'll take the view that, yeah, I trust you, I can work with you, until you prove otherwise. There are lots of other people that don't do that. They're completely the opposite. You have to earn their trust. You have to prove that you're worthy of their trust. Both groups present challenges for people who lack integrity, because at the end of the day, very quickly, the person that's trusted you by default is going to be disappointed that actually you really didn't seem to be the person they thought you were. And the person that's actually waiting to see that you're going to demonstrate that you're really trustworthy is actually not going to see what they need to see, and they're not going to trust you. So this is a problem, and it's a problem for you if you don't have the right actions, if you don't have the right words, if you don't put your words into action. You've got to mean what you say. You've actually genuinely got to be turning around and instilling in people a feeling that you are fundamentally honest as an individual, and that you are going to be in a position where, you, come what may, are going to look after the team. I've talked before on podcasts about protection. For me, it's another fundamental. Protecting the team is absolutely key. Being in a position where, if people that have worked for me have made a genuine, honest mistake, then I'll look after them to the absolute best of my ability, and I'll die in a ditch over it, because at the end of the day, that's really, really important. People need to feel that you, as the leader, have got their back. If you don't have any integrity, then actually the risk is you're going to just chuck them under the bus, and they're going to see that, and they're going to, and if you do that only once you need to do that, and you've burned yourself for a very, very long time. And it's like a lot of things in life, these things are hard won some of the time, and very, very easily lost. If you're dealing with people who need to feel that you've got to earn their trust, then actually it takes some time to do that. It is hard won, but it's incredibly easily lost. Even if you're dealing with the people who trust you automatically by default, that's their style, and that's much more my style. I tend to be a trusting kind of individual a lot of the time. Then if you disappoint me and you let me down and you blow it, then actually recovering that trust is a whole different problem set. And you've scarred your image, if you like, your public image, your public persona, and hopefully you've done some scarring to yourself as well, and to your own internal monologue as you look at yourself, because you should do. You should be looking in the mirror and feeling, do I have the right level of integrity here to actually do what I need to do? Where I have a real problem with current leaders in political life is, I do think that a lot of the time they are motivated by self-interest. They're motivated by their own ambition. That's what they're driving forward for. They don't really believe in some of the things they're pushing forward as policies. They certainly don't necessarily work together in a coherent team way. They don't support the people that work around them. And you've seen that writ large in recent times in terms of some of the top level political behavior in a range of countries, with some of the rhetoric, some of the dialogue, some of the language that gets used by leaders, where you think, whoa, is that the kind of leadership you want to see? So I think it's really important that we start this kind of debate in the leadership space, and we start thinking about, what kind of leaders do we actually want to have working for us? Because ultimately leaders work for the people, either in a company or in a political environment, because they're elected by those, or they're appointed by the people. The people have to turn around and actually support them. And the people can vote with their feet to a degree as well. They don't have to put up with this, and you shouldn't. If you're being led terribly, you should call it out. You should be looking to turn around and get the leadership to change its view individually or collectively. And if it doesn't, then you're looking to be changing the leadership. Now, that's easier said than done. I recognize that's really straightforward for me to turn around and sit here on a podcast and say, yeah, change your leadership, where you may actually have no prospect of being able to do that, whether it's political or indeed corporate. But you should try. You should absolutely be trying. You should be challenging your leaders to be better. As a leader, you should be challenging yourself to be better. You should be being the best you can be. And that means you need to be looking in the mirror and liking the reflection. If you're looking in the mirror and thinking, do you know what, I really don't actually have the right kind of level of integrity or trustworthiness over this particular issue, or generally, then you need to be doing something about it. You need to be doing it quickly. Again, I've said it before, but I was always motivated and continue to be motivated by two things. One is enjoying what I do. The second one is looking in that mirror and liking the reflection. And the hard part for me at the very end of my Air Force time was actually selling the Kool-Aid, as it were, to the people that work for me about some of the decisions being taken around defense, which I just didn't find palatable at all. And there has to come a point, there has to be a value set red line where you're going to turn around and go, no, I'm not putting up with that anymore. If you have no values, then what kind of leader are you? You need to be very clear, at least in your own mind, even if you're not setting it out publicly, about what kind of leader you are and you want to be, what kind of values you've got for yourself, and where your red lines are. And if you start having to cross those red lines, then you've blown your integrity to yourself as much as anything else. So really do think hard about How can I change that? What kind of stuff can I do? How can I go back to my trust equation? How can I reduce my self-orientation and my self-interest, and at the same time enhance my credibility, reliability, and intimacy with my team? Because that's a great formula for thinking about how am I actually going to do in this space. And when you look at it, and when you look at an awful lot of leadership, you see self-interest and self-orientation are very, very evidently to the fore with an awful lot of people. Now, everybody has got a degree of self-interest and self-orientation. You know, very, very few people in life ever are doing everything they do totally altruistically, right, without a single thought for themselves. There may be one or two examples you could drag out where that's possibly true, but they would be rare. The vast majority of people have actually got a high degree of self-interest in some circumstances and some self-interest in pretty much all circumstances. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to put that balance in the right space. Because if, back to the equation, if the piece along the top with credibility, reliability, and intimacy is not in the right place, then actually having a very high degree of self-interest makes you look very untrustworthy. And that's not great, you know, because you ultimately, to get your team to follow you, other than just out of curiosity once or twice, you need the team to believe in you. You need the team to be really feeling that actually, do you know what, this individual is the kind of person that I really do trust to look after me, to help me, to further my career, to protect me when things go wrong, to look after my my interests when times are tough and I need support for my family or for myself or whatever else it happens to be. You need to be that kind of leader, in my book. That's the right kind of leadership you want to see. What you don't want to see, and what we often are seeing, is people who will do whatever it takes to protect themselves, to cover up for things that have gone wrong, to chuck people under the bus at any moment rather than actually turn around and admit that they had a part to play, a significant part to play very often in some things that have gone amiss that that they really should have done differently. And again, when I look at the kind of political examples that are around at the moment, without naming any names, it's pretty obvious that there are some people out there whose rhetoric, public rhetoric, is either extraordinarily variable because you never know what they're going to say next, or consistently self-protectionist, even when it's pretty obvious that the wind is blowing in a different direction and actually they should be really thinking about how they handle this differently. Because everyone makes mistakes. It's about how you own up to them. And back to my accountability episode a while ago, you know, you need to be owning your own mistakes. Even as a senior leader, you need to be taking full ownership for what's gone on. You need to be thinking about other people's mistakes within your team. It may well be they've done stuff, but they've done it with the best of intentions. You will get far more credibility, far more loyalty, and they will perceive you as a more trustworthy person if actually you protect the team under those kind of circumstances, rather than just at the first opportunity turning an umbrella into a funnel and directing all of the the grief that's coming down from a particular issue down into your team and into either a particular individual or a particular subgroup within the organization you work for. I again am not saying here that you should never be turning around and holding people to account for poor behavior and things they've done wrong. Absolutely, you should, but you need to be holding up yourself as a shining example of why you're not tolerating this stuff, because you don't do it yourself. Don't do the be in the sort of do as I say, not do as I do brigade. You absolutely need to be doing what you do, and then getting people to do the same things, leading by example, following that example. If you're not setting the right example, why on earth would people follow you, and do something different? You're showing them the way as a leader. So you need to be thinking about, how can I do this? And it all, for me, hangs back to your trustworthiness and your integrity. You probably get in the sense on this particular episode that this is an area that's frustrating me, and it really is. I look at the quality of leadership in some segments of our society, and I pretty much want to weep for it, because I think it's absolutely woeful, and I don't think it gets better by perpetuating it. The problem is breaking that cycle at the moment is quite hard, because people are challenged in terms of, when you look particularly at political roles, do I actually want to go and do that? If I am a person of high integrity, high morals, strong moral compass, etc., Is it the kind of thing I want to go and get myself involved in, bearing in mind what's probably going to happen, which is going to be ugly, nasty, and frustrating. And it's really, really hard to then stick to your own moral principles in those circumstances. But I really hope we've got a chance somewhere along the line here to return to a better kind of moral code with the leadership that we have, because I do think we're losing it big time at the minute. I think that that kind of justifying why should I follow you piece is falling away a little bit with some of our leadership that's out there, either because of their own behavior, the examples in their past that are standing out as things that have really gone wrong and that they've not been held to account for, or because they've just airbrushed it from the world and wanted no one to see it and don't allow it to happen. People who surround themselves completely by like-minded yes men, figuratively speaking, yes men or yes women, people who are just, all they are is little clones that are essentially going to provide the same input because that's what you want to hear. You don't want dissenting voices. You don't want that back to Lencioni's triangle. You don't want the conflict. You don't want the work that is actually going to go into providing a better set of results ultimately, because you've gone through that conflict phase, got the commitment of the people, got the accountability from the team that's actually going to work with you, that then generates better results. Just trying to drive it through headlong by turning around and saying it's this way or the highway, not great leadership at all in my book. And there's way too much of that out there at the minute, which frustrates me enormously. I'm sorry it's a bit of a rant. It's a little bit of a stream of consciousness, because I do really feel that this is something that needs more debate, needs more justification and argument in many places, because we need leaders in every walk of life, whether it's private sector, public sector, political level, whatever it happens to be, that have got high levels of integrity and are trustworthy in the broadest sense of the word. So they're trusting the team that works for them, and actually they're protecting the team that works for them when their team does stuff wrong, but actually is still with well-intentioned. But also they're generating that trust from the team. People believe in them as individuals. They want to follow them. They want to work with them because they know that they're trustworthy and they're telling the truth. And that they, when they're not able to tell the truth, they stick their hand up and go, do you know what? This has gone wrong. This is a situation. I'm going to hold myself accountable for it. We just are in the wrong place with this at the minute. And I really, really think that from a leadership point of view, it's vitally, vitally important that we start turning this super tanker in a slightly different direction, so that actually we can get back to a world where people are more accountable, with high integrity, high levels of trustworthiness right across the book. I really hope that that is at least a little thought-provoking, a bit provocative, if not useful. But I do think about how you build your own trustworthiness, how you build your own integrity. Think about those couple of models. Are you using things like the trust equation to give you some actual sit-down thinking time? How can I build the things that are going to strengthen my trustworthiness? How can I build my credibility? How can I build my reliability? How can I improve my intimacy? At the same time, how can I reduce my self-orientation? When you go to Lencioni, how can I build that fundamental trust? How can I then create the conditions in the team where I'm allowing the conflict to develop and the actual challenge area to be there in a controlled, useful way that is getting you to a better result? I'm not talking about conflict that's just naked argument, that's unhelpful, unconstructive. I'm talking about allowing a robust debate. Everyone gets their view on the table. Everyone gets a chance to turn around and input. Then build the commitment that comes from that, which is going to be stronger as a result. And then that's going to buy into accountability, where everyone actually feels, you know what, we're all in this together. We've all committed to the same thing. We're all accountable for the end result. And hopefully the end result at the top of that pyramid is going to be the right result. So do think about those models. There are others out there as well that you can turn around and think about. But this fundamentally comes down to your mirror test. Look in the mirror. What are you seeing when you look back? Are you seeing someone who's very trustworthy, really focused on being trusted by the team, on trusting your team, genuinely empowering them, genuinely let them get on with it? Stop sticking a long screwdriver down into the business to actually see what goes on. If you're in that place, great. If you're not, then start thinking about, how do I change that reflection? How can I make sure that my reflection actually is the one I want to be looking at when I'm looking in the mirror? Every so often, you may be in a position where I really didn't like myself doing that. I didn't feel I handled that very well. I made a mistake. That you stick in your story bank and you do like I do now, where you talk about things that didn't go so well for you, because that's fine too. But at the same time, you absolutely need to be looking at the balance of those things. If the balance is too many negatives and not enough positives, then something needs to change. And you need to open yourself up to the feedback loops that are going to give you the input you need if you're not good at self-recognizing that. Have people around you who are going to actually be able to turn around and provide you with the right kind of interest, the right inputs, the right focused criticism in a positive sense, constructive criticism that is actually going to help you get better, to strengthen your view, to move you to a place where actually you've got a decent chance of becoming a better, more effective and useful leader. Think about it. Do that mirror test. Think about what kind of standards you're setting yourself, what kind of challenges you're putting on yourself, what kind of integrity you're demonstrating. When's the last time you really did a bit of a personal audit on that? Because if it was a long time ago, maybe time to have another go. Thanks very much. Hope you've enjoyed it. If as ever you have, then please do share it. Please make sure you're subscribing to the channels. Please make sure you're sharing, reposting, commenting. This is an area where I really would love some feedback. I'm not the oracle on this. There are plenty of people who will have other views, alternative, better views potentially. Let's get them out there. Let's have a really robust debate about it, because that would be lovely. If it's useful to you, you're finding value in it, then please think about that. Buy me a coffee moment, and that would make a big difference to me. Financially support the podcast through the support the show link that's either in the in YouTube in the show notes, or whichever podcast platform you're using. You'll find it in the show notes there as well. Please think about joining either as a supporter or a champion or a patron of the show. It makes a big difference to me. It'd be really, really appreciated. See you soon. Take care. Bye now.